Hello, in this video I will try to cover such a complex topic as Report Designer. Report Designer is very extensive and powerful tool included in TBM, and since its number of capabilities it provides, features, it creates difficulties for our users to use it and apply in real life to solve real tasks. We have a lot of predefined reports, but anyway, based on experience from previous years, it seems like it does not help a lot to our users to get started with reporting. First of all, I recommend to check our wiki documentation. There is a number of articles about Report Designer where you can read about basic operations like how to create reports, how to bind it into some data, how report is structured, which elements exist in the Report Designer. But in this video I want to duplicate and demonstrate something in real time, how it works, where to click, how to interact with the designer. So let's try to get started, and I will try to be short as much as I can. Reports can be found under Reports and Templates navigation menu and Reports and Templates item here. You will get into list of reports, and you can see that predefined reports is predefined, marked with orange color. You cannot edit them, you cannot delete them, you can only generate these reports. For example, invoice template can be used for invoices, but for custom reports you can just double click on that and generate report. To create a new report, you can click this new button and select empty report if you do not want to attach it to any entity type to make it in place. Or you can create in place report and select some data type for that report. And when you select some data type, for example client, you will be able to go to clients, select the client, click print, and select your in place report linked with clients, like that. The same about invoices and other entity types like quotes, projects, vendors, anything. So for each of these types you can create some in-place report. Alright, what's next? Let's maybe try to start with an empty report and do some design work from scratch. Or if, for example, we will be trying to implement during this video some basic demo invoice template, then let's maybe create not empty report but in place invoice report. And my invoice template. Alright, I click OK, and now we get into the designer. So first of all, we have few buttons above the designer surface. It is save and close buttons. It's obvious what they mean, and export layout and import layout. If I save layout and export it, I can save it using some name and then share with I don't know, with colleagues, or if you experience some issues with the report, you can save it to Repix format and then share it in community, and we can try to help you to further tune this report, like that. And then you can import layout into currently opened report. On the left you have access to elements, toolbar menu. From here you can add some elements to your surface, starting from simple label or checkbox or rich text, which supports, for example, label is just to display text using some single formatting style. And for rich text you can apply different formatting styles to different words or characters in this element, inside this element. Picture box also can be linked to some data, or you can load your image, any image from your computer. Panel to group some elements, table, obvious why it's needed, character comp, line to draw something, shape, barcode, also supported by the reporting engine. Then some charting, like charts, gauges, Sparklines, pivot grid, so you can build not only some text data but draw something to analyze your data. Subreport allows, if you have, for example, 2 different reports in the system, and then you want to display them in a single report, then you can use this subreport element to display information from one report and then from another report. And then few not so important elements like PDF content, PDF signature, table of contents, if we create bookmarked report, page info like current page to display current page or current date, and this element can be used. Page break, and then cross-band line and cross-band box. You will understand meaning of these elements later, but I doubt that they will be needed somewhere during your work. Then designer surface. By default it has 3 bands, and you can resize them, and I suppose that top margin and bottom margin bands can be deleted even. Let me try. No, they cannot be deleted, so this mandatory bands which should exist in any report. When you click on the band, it will be collapsed to free up some space, and you can resize to decrease margins, for example, and increase detail part. And on the right main panel, this is properties panel. When you click on some elements, like on the band or on the report itself, you can see that different elements are selected here. So depending on currently selected element, you will find different properties in the properties panel. Of course, that's obvious. And to select report itself, you just click on somewhere on empty space and you get extra report selected here. So initially you have to specify some basic information for the report. First of all, we have to select data source. Data source is a table from where application will gather data to display in your report. And this data source can be found here on the field list. And since when we have created a report, we selected in place report invoice. That's why invoice table was added by default to this report. If you create empty report, you will not find any table here. Then you can click this button, add new data source, and then select data type which you want to bind your report to, and then the table will appear here. Parameters, we can talk about them later. Parameters specify some, well, while later, let's talk about it now. Allows to interact with the user, to provide some like parameters, and then these parameters can be used in report. For example, if we create a new parameter, select, for example, date start, description, sorry, it cannot contain spaces, start date, type will be date, and expression, we can select expression for default value like today, and value will be selected automatically, for example, and then OK. And when we have a parameter, we can start using this date start parameter somewhere in our report. And if I will switch to preview, I forgot to mention that at the top we have some also toolbar with comments applying to currently selected elements, and last comment here is preview 1. And if I click it, you can see that parameters panel is displayed where user can select some parameter like that, and then click submit, and after that report will be generated. But of course we do not have any data here for now. Say we can go to now we can use this parameter. We can go to properties panel, select our report. You can see that one of properties here is data source and filter string. And I can open filter editor here, add a new condition, select, for example, date of invoice, depending on, of course, as you see, depending on which data table you use, you automatically get structure of that table here and in other editors of that report. And it's important to note now that before starting to work with reports, with Report Designer, it is highly recommended to check another video where I tried to cover database structure subject, and it contains important information to understand how data is stored in the database, and knowing that it will be much easier for you to connect to proper data here in the report. So, and I want now to filter report data by date from our parameters. So let's say date should be greater than parameter, and then I select parameter, date start. And now our data will be filtered based on parameter type we enter. If to go through properties and try to explain how it's structured, in the actions it contains important buttons here to create bands. We will talk about them very soon. Data source. Data source can be selected for report and for detailed reports, which we can add here, like detailed report. Under appearance, you can control font, borders, colors, and alignments, so appearance properties of a selected element. Say if I will drag some label here and select it, and under appearance I can select, for example, background color and borders, etc. So like now we have border and background color. We can change font style, padding from like that. You can see that it changes when I increase padding from all borders like that. So it's easy to understand. Formatting rules, we will return to them later. Very important functionality. Behavior. Under behavior also I recommend to just read names of properties, and it's easy to understand what it means. Like anchoring, it could be anchored to top and bottom depending when, for example, size of element can be decreased or increased automatically when nearby elements are growing or shrinking, and you can allow or deny this, and you can select auto width. So just need to experiment with this, and it's pretty easy to understand, to catch how it works. Under edit options, these are available not for all fields but for labels. You can enable editor for preview. Say if we select yes, and editor name will be no need to select anything, and if we switch to preview, then editor will allow us to edit information right inside preview of a report, and it could be very useful sometimes to edit data before saving a report. So this is about editing. Under data, if we select label, we can also select data bindings. So when we want to print some data on the report, we can just type some text here, like directly using a keyboard, or we can get this information from database. And for that, bindings should be used. So if we go to data bindings, text, we can select any data field which we have here in this tab. So we have parameters and invoice data table. Say if I go to invoice and find number, then this label will contain not text I have entered manually here, but data retrieved from a table. Alright, so under design for label we have nothing, but for report under design we have name of report and language. Language specifies formatting rules used to represent dates, numbers, and etc. Navigation is not so interesting, you can check it on your own. Under page settings you can select page size, margins, and under printing you can change some printing parameters, also you can check it on your own. Now, before moving on, let's try to talk about bands. Reports and templates in TBM have banded structure, which means that data is grouped logically to some area, band. Report has some data source, some data table, and as you understand, this table contains some number of records. Say, when you print one invoice, you have to filter data invoice table by some criteria. For example, if you know that you want to print one invoice, you know ID of that invoice or number, I don't know, then you should filter data source against some parameters like ID or number or date or whatever, and then data source will contain only one record, and this means that detail band will be printed one time. But if we are linked to invoice table and we do not have any filtering, do not have anything, then detail band will be printed as many times as the number of records which we have in our invoice table. So you should remember that, and it will be easy to understand how to interact with data source. Few minutes ago we have added a parameter start date and filtered data source, so date is greater than date specified in the parameter. So this is how we are limiting number of records displayed in our report. Okay, so detail band will be printed as number of records, but we have a number of other band types. And if we will expand actions group, you will find this number of buttons here. So, and depending on what type of band I currently select, you see that some icons become available or disabled. Let's say we select report and let's check what we have here. We can add report header band. This band will be printed one time for the whole report. Even if we have like hundreds of invoices printed, this header band will be printed only once. Next one, page header band. This band will be printed one time for each page of report. Then group header band. Group header band also can be shown later, or you can find it out on your own. Data can be grouped by some field. For example, if we are talking about invoice, we can group it by customers, and this way we will create a group, and then we will be able to use this group header band. Another one is disabled. Okay, we will check it later. Vertical header band, vertical detail band. It allows to insert band here on the left, so also probably not very interesting. Vertical total band, and then detail report band. What it's most important to explain what this band means detail report band. Say we are printing invoices and we get this detail band for each invoice row. However, each invoice may contain some nested table, as you know from database structure video already. For example, it could be rows to print table, or invoice items table, or linked payments table, or whatever. You can find it out by going to field list, expanding invoice table, and then finding items at the top with this arrow icon with collection at the end. Usually all nested tables contain collection in their name. So we have corrective invoices collection, we have invoice items collection, invoice item correction collection, payment items collection, payment method list linked with that invoice, books, accounting books, rows to print table. And if we want to print information from any of these tables for each detail band, then we have to create this detail report band like that. And then after detail report, we get footers, the same as headers, but footers. And the last one, sub band. Sub band is just, how to say, like a group, and it will be printed like if you put some label here, another label here, and then insert a subband, and you can see that this subband is included in this detail band, and it will be printed, but you can apply some formatting rules, for example, to this subband to hide it or show, for example. So it's just additional way to group data and then manipulate this using some functionalities which we have in the report designer, including formatting rules, which we will be talking later. And to delete a band, you just select it and press delete on the keyboard. So let's say let's finish talking about detail report bands. If I click it, you can see that we get modified structure of the report. Now we have detail, then detail report, and then detail band of this detail report. Say if I will now add report header, then this header will be added for this detail report. But if I select the whole report, main report, and create another report header, then I get a header here. So we have header, detail band printed for each invoice, then detail report printed also for each invoice. This report header printed each time for each detail of this nested table, and we can link this detail report with some data source. So we have to select invoice here, and the data member will be rows to print. This table contains all information from our invoice. So now we have detail band printed as many times as let's maybe check it in a real example. So let's move this label to our report header, and let's say list of invoices. We do not want bind it to some data, so I erase data binding, list of invoices. Let's go to probably appearance and font, and let's make size like 30. Okay, list of invoices, and now let's just bind it to invoice number. Let's go to let me show you how to bind data, not just by dragging label from here and then binding in to table field, but let's go to field list, expand invoice, let's find number field, it should be here, and just drag and drop here to the detail band like that. So now it will print invoice number. Of course, if we want to add invoice number, then we drag field here, type invoice number, colon, and then drag this field here. Other way to do that is delete this and go to data properties of this element, data binding text, and we have format string here. And I can do that invoice number, colon, and then in curly brackets I type 0. 0 is a value of, represents value of bound field, and press enter. And now let's drag it somewhere here and let's try to build our report. Let's go to preview, and probably date should be like that, from April. Probably need to decrease start date, submit, and you can see that we've got some records here. List of invoices printed one time and invoice number. Some invoice numbers here printed for each invoice. Alright, so if we go back to designer, you can see the detailed report, although it has some height, it wasn't printed and it was shrinked, and we just only got number of records. Let's say we want to now display some invoice items, then let's drag something to our header and type invoice items. Also, let's apply some formatting here, like appearance, font, background color. Let's say this time we can set it yellow one and increase size to 20, like that. And let's make probably some header like order, job, probably job number, and amount, not too much. And amount, like that. So we get this in header, and now we have to somehow print details in the detail band. So this header printed one time for each invoice. Let's also probably drag it a bit to the right. And now let's go to field list, expand invoice, and expand a table which we use here in the detail report, and it will be rows to print. And here we have a number of fields which we can access in this row. Of course, we can use values from higher level table, from invoice as well. So let's say it will be order, this one, sort order, then job number, what we have here, job, and then number, like that. And then amount, like that. If we want to apply some formatting to amount, we can go to properties, and in the text format string we can apply the same approach which I showed with number. Say if we want to display only 2 decimals or 5 decimals, I type curly bracket 0 colon and then some format string. For numbers, for dates, in net framework, different formatting styles can be used. You can find this information in any search engine which you like, but for numbers, let's say we want to have 5 decimals, I type N5. Here, by the way, we have a helper here to build format strings like that. So we may have N2 or E2 F1 It depends on how we want to present our strings. Let's leave it like n2. And let's decrease size of this band now. We can add some borders, for example, here as well, but that will be enough for now. So now the structure is changed, and now we should see not only numbers of our invoices, but invoice items as well. Let's go to preview. Again, decrease date, submit. So you can see that list of invoices one time, invoice numbers the same number of times. Then for each invoice number we have detail report, one header, invoice items with this table header, and then contents of rows to print table. As you understand, if we go to field list and find rows to print, we have job, for example, and job has job items, job tasks, nested table. Then, of course, as you understand, we can create another nested report here, and under each invoice item we can display job tasks, for example, or any other nested table. So this hierarchy can be like infinity, and you can create as many detailed reports as needed. And like we can create some footer as well, just again for example. Let's say it will be group footer and report footer. It will be report footer, and we want to put some totals here from rows to print. To do that, we can use calculated fields feature, also available. To use it, we have to go to field list and then select table where we want to add calculated field. Say if we want to calculate something from rows to print table, we have to select invoice, top row, high level, and click add calculated field. It will be added as calculated field 1 at the bottom in the field list, and you can click edit, provide some name, for example, rows to print total, some display name if needed. Excuse me, it was sorted. Where it is, rows to print total, field type, data source, invoice, and expression. Expression allows us to provide some logic how to calculate this field. Also, you can spend some time to check which functions we have here. A lot of we can apply calculations not only to numbers but to strings as well. We can calculate length of string, or a lot of, and date times. Also a lot of functions. You can select any function and read explanation here on the right. But now we need aggregate functionality, and we need sum. Return sum of all expression values in the collection. So we get sum, and we need to provide name of collection, rows to print, sum, and sum of which field. We need amount, like that. So this expression editor helps us to create correct expressions. And when expression is ready, I click OK, and now we have this field available to be used, and I can just drag and drop it to the designer surface. Let's make it bold, for example. Go to appearance, and font style will be bold. Again, we can apply formatting as well. It will be under data binding, format string 0 and 2, or let's this time use N5. And now let's go to preview, submit, and you can see that now we have amount and total value of these amounts. This formatted as 2 decimals, this one has 5 decimals. So our report now took some real form, and it's pretty useful already. We have a list of invoices with jobs, with amounts, with totals, etc. Now let me demonstrate you another functionality. We already under 30 minutes, a lot of information, probably difficult to watch. Now let's talk about formatting rules. Reporting in TBM allows to create some formatting rules, and depending on some condition, apply some changes to properties of element to which this formatting rule is assigned to. Probably sounds difficult, but let's do that. Let's select a report, let's go to appearance, and let's find formatting rules. In the list of formatting rules, it's by default empty. Now let's create a new formatting rules. Let's leave default name, and you can see that we can select data source and data member where this formatting rule we plan to apply. So for example, let's try to format this cell amount according to some criteria. Let's find our formatting rule, and data member will be rows to print, as you understand already. And now we need to specify some condition. Let's go to expression editor, let's find amount field, and let's say we want to format something if amount is greater than 100. Okay, and under formatting group we can select what kind of formatting we want to apply to elements. We can change background, we can apply borders. Let's say we want a border, let's select some color so it will be very visible. Border dash will be like solid or dash. Let's say border width, let's say it will be 3. Background, it could be like some kind of orange. We can change text alignment, we can change font properties, for example, apply another font family or increase size or whatever. And we can change visibility. For example, this visibility feature is used a lot in default invoice templates included in TBM. Let's say under invoice items we have text 1, text 2, text 3 applied to an invoice, and if no any text is selected, we do not want to display that information. So for that purpose, we create a sub-band here, put information about taxes, and then create this formatting rules, and under criteria, depending on if text 1 or text 2 is null or not, we change visibility property of that band. Like that. But now we do not want to change visibility, but just change some color. So formatting rule is created. Now let's select this element. Let's go to appearance again, and in the list of formatting rules, let's select it. So this rule is applied to only to this cell. We can apply it to this or to whole table row, like that. And now if we will go to preview again and click submit, you can see that numbers which are greater than 100 were selected, formatted according to our formatting rule, and those which are lower than 100 remained as they were designed initially. So that's very useful feature which you can use. What else? Probably it could be useful to show this. If I select detail report and go to properties, not under appearance, I suppose it under printing, and then we have report print options, and we have a number of properties here. Important properties, detail report. This checkbox print when data source is empty. So if some invoice does not have any invoice items and we do not want to display at least once this report header, then it's necessary to remove this checkbox. The same as detail count at design time. If we want to just test how it looks like and we do not want to display a lot of information here, we can increase this by 2, for example, switch to preview, and now each invoice will contain maximum 2 items. Another feature, if you select some detail band, like this one or this one, and go to behavior, and we have page break property here, which you can select from none to before the band. So if we want to see each invoice starting from the new page, we can select before the band or before the band except the first entry. And the same about after the band or after the band except for the last entry. Like that. Another functionality which I can demonstrate to you is another way of binding. It's not very frequently used, but you can probably use it from time to time. Let's say if you want to display few fields in a single label. In this case, you cannot use binding because binding allows to bind only to one data field. Then we have to select none here, and in the text property we have to provide fields which we want to use in this label, and it is done in the square brackets. For example, invoice number colon, and then we put square brackets and type name of field which we want to display. I know that it is number, and then for example comma and invoice date, again colon, and it will be date. I suppose it's named, the name of that field is date. Let's check. Yes, it's date. Now if we want to format a date, because if I leave it like that, we now have this element bound to 2 fields. And if we go to preview, and you can see that date is now first of all, number and date are displayed, but date is displayed incorrectly, and we want to apply some formatting to that field. And to do that, before closing bracket, I type exclamation mark, and after exclamation mark, I type formatting which I want to use. For example, it could be like D, which means short date format. And now let's go back to preview, submit, and you can see that we get American style date here. But if we want to format directly using some template, then I do that dd .mm.yyyy. This is European format. And now if we go to preview, we get correctly formatted date according to a template which I specified. So that's another pretty frequently used feature, like it's called mail merge, when we use multiple fields in a single element. Alright, let's get back to the designer and check next functionality which I wanted to demonstrate. It will be about repetitive data. Let's add more columns here, and let's say it will be service type, like that. Amount will be dragged here, and for service type, let's go to invoice, rows to print, find work type and name. Okay, let's check if it works. Go to preview, and we have translation, proofreading, etc. And for example, there are times that when some job, for example, it contains a lot of repetitive data, like a lot of rows here in invoice with a lot of repetitive translation phrase here, and we want, for example, to print translation only first time, and in next rows just leave empty space. It is possible to achieve that by duplicate removal. So let's go to designer and select our service type cell, go to settings, then go to behavior group and find process duplicates property. Propers duplicates mode and propers duplicates target. In the mode we can select leave, merge, suppress and shrink. If we say merge, or then all cells in this series of records will be merged into single cell, and value will be put, for example, into middle of that grouped cell. If we select suppress, then all following cells will just be removed. And duplicates target allows us to select how to recognize that value is repetitive by its value or by its tag. Say if we leave value and let me go to data binding, you can see that format string, where it is? No, not to data binding, but to data probably. And we can, under data bindings, we can find that element can be text property of that element can be bound to one field of the database, and tag property can be bound to another one. So we can bind an element to different fields, one to display and one to hide, like internal binding. And then we can determine if value is duplicated by text or by tag. And we select by text, switch back to preview, again submit, and now you can see that translation was printed on the first time, and in the next row it was hidden. So, but if after translation we have proofreading, everything goes well, and then again here it is hidden, like that. So this is about duplicates. Next functionality is about sorting and grouping data. So you can see that when I open list of invoices and report, we get invoice from 16 of 2021 June, then 1st of May, what else, 4th of May, 1st of February. So data is printed in some random order retrieved from database in an order how these records were created in the database. And let's say we want to sort them by some value, for example, like by date. And to sort information, you have to select detail band of the report. And under sort fields group, you can create sorting. You can have multiple sorting fields. Let's click plus button and let's select field by which we want to sort the data. Let's say it will be date, and we want to have it in descending order, for example, or let's say it will be ascending. Now if I will switch to preview, you will find that now we are starting from invoice from previous year and go through invoices with increasing dates. If you want to have multiple sorting fields, you can add another one, and if, for example, first field will be identical for multiple records, then they will be sorted by second field in this list. And next functionality is grouping. Let's say we have invoices, and these invoices could be in different currencies, and we want to display invoices in one currency, then in other currency. So we need to group information by currency field. How to achieve that? To do that, you can go to detail report, select it, and under actions, we have to add group header band. When this group header was added, we can do that. We select it, and under group fields, we can specify but by which fields we want to group data. I add a new field, the same as with sorting, and I want to find, sorry, I added group band in the wrong place. I have to select this detail band, main one, and then insert group header. And then in group header, I add a group field and find currency. and name. So now we have a list of invoices grouped by currency name. This field property group union allows us to stick this header band to whole page or first detail. So it will not avoid to move this detail band to next page if there is not enough space to display it in the current page. And let's say we want to display currency name here in this header. Let's go to field list, select our invoice, find currency, drag currency name here. Again, apply some formatting. It will be under appearance, where it is, appearance, background color. Let's make it green. And also increase font size a bit, like that. And text format string will be currency 0. Alright, so now we have this group, and under this group we will have invoices which belong to this group. Let's try to go to preview again, submit, and you can see that we have the first group and invoices inside this group in dollars. And unfortunately we do not have invoices in another currency. Probably if I will increase date period here, submit, yeah, now we have invoices in euro currency, and we go next. So when last euro invoice is listed, we get a new currency, dollars, and get invoices in dollars. Then in the report, we can create, where it is, group footer band, and this group or footer band will be printed per each group. For example, we can create calculations, some summaries in a group, like display amount of all invoices which belong to this group. So I won't be demonstrating this to save time, but based on this summary which we used here, you can find it quickly on your own how to add such a field to the report. If to try to demonstrate you some elements from this, and now at the end let's talk about a few fancy elements from the toolbar, like chart, gauge, and pivot grid, for example, and Sparkline probably. Let's remove everything what we have created, like footer, headers, everything, and just leave a header because we will put our controls there. Let's increase the height, and let's start with the chart. I drag chart element, increase the size, and it is empty by default. I run the designer, and in this pop-up dialog we get full-fledged chart designer. It has a lot of properties. You have a lot of controls of how to represent data. You can control which summary functions to use for values. You can select how to group arguments. You can apply different groupings for dates or different types of arguments which you select for your series. It also supports a lot of different chart types, like bars, stacked bars, side by side, points, bubbles. You can see that here is a long list of different types of charts which you can display in this reporting engine. But for example, let's just build a quick chart to display amounts of invoices which we have for our clients. So let's select data source. It will be invoice, series data member. We want to create customer name, like that, palette name. We can use different types of palettes, like that. Then view will be bar or stack bar. I suppose it will be stack bar. Argument data member will be customer name as well. Or we can use currency name, for example. Let's say it will be currency name Alright, and value data member will be amount, like that. We can use color data member, we can apply different sorting, like ascending by argument, like that. So I think it will be enough. Let's click OK and go to preview, submit. And here we have different customers and single currency and amounts per each customer in this currency. If I increase date period, we get 2 bars here. If we go to designer again and change argument, where it is, currency name, from currency name to customer name, and not easy to find, like that. Okay, preview, submit, and now we have this chart showing us total amounts for each client in the specified period, like that. If we want to show like pivot table, let's add this control to the list, to the designer, and to work with pivot tables, we have under actions group here these buttons, which allows us to add a line. It's okay, center. It allows us to insert field to filter area, to data area, to column area, and to row area. Let's say we want in data area one field, another one in column, and another one in row. And what we want to use under rows, let's say we want to have invoice, customer name, like that. Under columns, let's say we want to use currency name, and under values we want to see amount, like that. And if we go to preview again, we will get didn't work. Customer name, currency name, and amount is 0. Probably I didn't select data source. Okay, let's go to preview again, submit. Again, doesn't work. Yeah, I see, since I didn't select data source initially, now we get this strange behavior, 0 point customer name. We need to use just customer name here, currency name here, and amount here. Third, try to go to preview, submit, and now we have values probably incorrectly formatted. Let's fix it. Let's go to amount and date. We have amount, caption, group interval, summary type. We can use different summary types in our pivot table. Okay, appearance, caption, cell format, format type none. Let's say it will be numeric, and format string will be N2, like that. Let's try again, go to previews, submit, and we have correctly formatted numbers here, list of language customers, and list of currencies and totals. Everything again is configurable, so you can, since total by different currencies has no sense, we can remove it in the properties, but leave these totals here. And you can see that we have this information. All right, so what's next? Let's see how to use gauges. Let's remove our pivot table and chart, and we want a gauge, and this time it will be put not into the header but into detail band. Let's say we're displaying invoices, list of invoices in our report, and we want to see how different amount of this invoice from maximum amount. All right, so what we have here, view type, we can select view type, view style, view theme, like that, and actual value. We want to bind actual value to invoice amount, format string. It also can be probably into target value. Let's say we can create a calculated field and determine maximum amount of our invoices, but this time I will just enter some fixed data here, and minimum it will be 0. All right, and maximum it will be, let's say here target value will be $1,000 or euro, and maximum will be like 10,000. Now if we'll go to preview again and submit, you can see that we have number of gotchas per each invoice, and depending on its amount, you see that this arrow show us different values like that, and we have this target value and maximum value. So this is how gotchas can be used. And as for Sparklines, it can display us some small chart, like data member, for example. We have to under view we will have a line, and it should be bound to some value member. Here under data it will be amount, and if we will switch to preview, you will see that this small chart drawn here or for amounts of invoices during the whole period of our report. So these are controls which you can also use in your reporting. If to go to the last one, which is page info, this control allows to display some current information. Let me check. It can, by default it displays current page number. So if we go to preview, and you can see that now we can view page number 1 of 3. All right, it is printed in report header one time, and if we will put it into the top margin, print it on each page. Now let's switch to preview again, submit, and you can see that page number is now displayed on each page. Additionally, except page number, we can use different page information displayed in this element. It could be just page number and current date time, username, page count. Like if I will switch to current date time, you will see that now we have date time printed on each page of invoice. It could be useful to just have some timestamp when we are creating an invoice, a report. So this is how it all works. I tried to display, to demonstrate you as much as possible in this limited time frame. Its video is already about 1 hour, so I hope it will be much easier for you to start working with reporting, with templates for your invoices or quotes or purchase orders, and you can apply much more knowledge-based approach to building your reports, and it won't be looking so difficult as before watching of this video. So thank you for spending time, and see you next time. Bye bye.